Okay, so for those couple of people in the room who don't know me, I am Eddie Kirkby, and I'm director of the Making Rooms, which is the new maker space in Blackburn that we're calling it. And I'm not, well, I wouldn't call myself a maker. From a very young age, I was a tinkerer, so I used to love taking things apart and seeing getting them working again, and usually breaking them, but sometimes making them work again. So that led me to become an engineer, and throughout my engineering career, I've been involved in new product development, and so that's kind of led round to me running Fab Labs and opening Fab Labs. So I've kind of become a maker as a job role rather than as a hobby. And I was lucky enough to be working for the Manufacturing Institute when we launched the first Fab Lab in the UK back in Manchester back in 2010. And as part of the Manufacturing Institute, over the last 3 years, we've also opened a couple more Fab Labs, one in Melsey Port, one in Altrincham. And during that time as well, I also helped support setup of quite a few Fab Labs around the country and kind of started the Fab UK movement around the country, or the Fab UK network around the country. And I think there's about 25, 30 Fab Labs now in the UK, so it's grown quite dramatically. And when we started, I was obviously working for the Manufacturing Institute, so our kind of expectations of what might happen with the Fab Lab, we weren't looking at maker movement in general, this is about Fab Labs. I think I've skipped a slide. Oh, sorry, no, a bit more about me. Sorry, and then last year, I was enticed and kind of encouraged by the model that had developed through all these Fab Labs kind of being set up around the country, and been talking to Blackburn with Darwin Council for a few years about bringing a Fab Lab to Blackburn. And the model they'd kind of developed with Claire Timon and the Blackburn's Open project really kind of enticed me over to Blackburn, really. And it was about not just having the Fab Lab, but it is, luckily, we got quite a bit of funding, so it was the best equipped Fab Lab in the UK at the moment, which was quite lucky for Blackburn. But also, we managed to be able to have a little coffee shop, which made it more of a social space. And probably more importantly, we combined the Fab Lab facility with incubation space. So we've got flexible workspace offices and stuff. So actually, it's about we can help generate new businesses. And our idea is to try and retain talent and entrepreneurship in Blackburn and grow it in Blackburn, which it traditionally had a bit of an issue with recently about people moving out of Blackburn once they get skilled up. So when we launched the first Fab Lab in the UK and kind of grew the Fab Lab movement, the kind of expectation from the Manufacturing Institute perspective especially was that this was going to be the thing that people were interested in, was the technology. So all this kind of advanced digital manufacturing technology, we thought SMEs and small manufacturers and small enterprises would really be kind of get onto the fact that they can use this equipment, test it out, and then adopt it into their facilities and their processes and start kind of moving forward in the next generation. And as a result of that, the second expectation really was that this would lead to a new model of distributed manufacturing. So rather than things being made in one part of the world and shipped all over the world, and parts and components and materials being shipped all over the place, things would be made locally, distributed across these little maker spaces, or whatever you want to call them, and made close to where they're actually bought and used. And to a certain extent, a few of these things did happen. I mean, from a kind of adoption of technology perspective, this is an example of Croft Engineering, who make high-flow filters. And they were trying these new filters that couldn't be made in any other way apart from 3D printing. And as a result of that, they were quite successful. They actually then invested quite heavily in metal 3D printing technology, and now a big part of their business is actually as a 3D printing bureau for other organizations and do a lot of kind of development work for that. And a few, on the distributed manufacturing side, there are a few things that kind of came out that work, like Pinoco, Shapeways, more recently the Open Desk, and also in America there's a thing called 100K garages, which do CNC machining from people's garages. But the thing about these is these are all came out around about the same time as the first Fab Lab, around about 2010, 2011, and they haven't really changed much. So this idea of distributed manufacturing that we thought would kind of take off and really grow hasn't grown much, especially at the same pace as this thing we call at the moment, we're calling the maker movement. So there was a few of those expectations that did come up, but not in the way we thought it would. But the big surprise for us, and from the kind of, especially from the manufacturing perspective, was that not many manufacturers, especially the small ones, really kind of got that interested or got the Fab Lab movement. But then more recently, after probably about 5 years, what they really got interested in wasn't the technology or the way things were made, but the actual culture that was developing in these spaces. So they were more interested in the way people experimented, failed, played, just tested things, made things very quickly and rapid iterations. That was the kind of culture. And also the flat, there was no hierarchy, it was a flat structure, so everyone had value. And diversity was celebrated because you needed diversity to bring people together to make interesting things. And a couple of big organizations that really got onto this, Saint-Gobain and Airbus are both multinational organizations, as you probably know, and they both now have brought a Fab Lab into their facilities, into their factories, to try and generate the culture of Fab and maker spaces within their business, rather than bringing the technology in. So really, that was the kind of biggest surprise we saw from the whole movement.